So once again, currently the way this program is structured is that we have two functions, and each of them is trying to call each other. And the result is that as soon as I run into this line and try to compile it, this gives me this error. Pawn identifier not found. Typically when you see something, well, first of all, identifier pawn, so I need to be able to realize that this is this identifier. So compiler says that I just do not recognize this name, so I cannot even begin to tell you what this might be. It just basically identifier has to be somehow specified, but you just went to use it and it's nowhere to be found. So to combat this issue, we need to do some declarations. For example, so this is let's try to solve the problem through declarations. Pawn is a function which takes an integer as a parameter and returns void as a return type. If I copy this and paste it as this, just exactly duplicated form, and add a semicolon here. This form is called function declaration. The semicolon here suggests that pawn, which is a function because it has a parenthesis and it uses specific input parameters, and this is its return type. But the semicolon here signals to the compiler that this is not a definition of a function. It is only a declaration of a function. And look what is about to happen. I build this program again, and this time it builds just fine. Interesting, right? So simply adding declaration of a function without specifying what it does initially actually solves this problem. This is very effective approach, and this is why really the functions are building blocks, because in order to be able to make a function call, it is enough for the compiler to know that first of all it's a function because it was declared as a function, it takes integer as a parameter, and it has nothing to return. So this information from the declaration of the function is enough for the compiler to realize what this is and also realize that this is actually a function call. So this error should no longer be an issue, right? And I'm able to compile this program without a problem. We should probably take a very formal approach and say that once we realize that we need some declarations in our program, a typical approach is that we actually declare all functions that we use. It's a very standard approach to simply create a list of declarations of all functions right at the top of our source file, and be able to essentially declare functions before they are defined. Now, function definition is when we use the curly braces or brackets and provide a body to the function, right? So we actually specify this is what it does. Okay, so this is ping and pawn. By the way, if so this let's just add another comment here and say function declarations. I'm sorry, definitions. So these are function declarations that could be followed by function definitions. A declaration is simply a promise that this function, this is its full declaration with input parameters and return type, but it's also a promise that somewhere, possibly even in a different file, a definition of this function will be provided. Okay. By the way, if I don't have these function declarations in the code, then this becomes a declaration definition. Basically a declaration and definition at the same time. So the function gets declared and immediately defined, right? But if I separate it by specifying declarations and also separate function definitions, then we no longer have declaration definition, we have declarations and definitions specified separately. A little bit of a technicality. Now, I also observe that my function declarations are a little bit too far from where they should be. Normally, we begin including header files, system header files first, then I do have this preprocessor defined symbol, and now I will place my function declarations. So functions become building blocks of our programs, which is very nice news. We can rely on function definitions and what they do. But the next step is that I would like to move these function definitions out from main.cpp and instead have another source file dedicated to business rules of this game, right? The game rules I would like to keep in a separate file. I just don't like the idea of placing continuously everything in a single file. It just gets very difficult to scroll up and down when you're working with this. So next step is to go to the source files in our project and say, let's add a new item, and it will be a C++ file, and I will name it ping-pong.cpp and say add, right? Add like this. So it gets added to the list. I basically observe that I would like to continue this list of my source files, and you can see that this file gets created and of course it's empty. I will right click on this tab and say new vertical document group, which moves the file, and right now my project organization is all done. I have the two files, so I will close my Solution Explorer and instead rearrange everything like this. And my plan is to take this out, essentially cut and paste it here, just like this. So I say, in my view, what I would like to have is I would like to reorganize the program so that function definitions belong to a separate file, and primarily my main.cpp contains only the main function and the necessary includes. Right? So once again, view Solution Explorer just temporarily. I took a step to add new source file and then moved my function definitions into brand new source file. And I just wonder what is it going to look like now. So I say build solution and take a look. So I get a lot of errors for instance, the first error points here and says cout is not a member of standard library namespace, right? So I get this message, and this becomes problematic. Then again, this essentially tells me that this is undefined. The next message is that again, this another message that this time strangely I run into the same problem, that the pawn is again telling me the same error, is that identifier is not found. So Of course, the reasons for all of this brand new problems just by simply moving code to a different file, although the file is part of our project and gets compiled, is that every source file is compiled independently. It's absolutely independent process to compile each file. In other words, everything that I did over here for my ping pong to initialize all of this to declare functions has to happen here one more time. Okay, so if I do this, right, I need IOStream because I'm using cout. I need how many times to play because I'm not using it here, but doesn't matter, right? And I need my function declarations. Let me try building this time. And everything builds fine. However, what I don't like is that I have this duplication of my includes and my function declarations and some of my defines duplicated twice. Again, the maintenance of such program could become problematic because it's just, if I need to make a change in the name of this function, now I have to make it here, here, which is in a different file, and also over here. So it becomes a bit overwhelming. So what is the next step? How do we improve our organization? It's very attractive and definitely good direction to have multiple files, but how do we manage all of this without any sort of duplication?